Okay, starting the work week, big challenge, going to Buffalo to play a really good football team. Got to make sure that we have a really, really good week. Started this morning with our meetings, getting to know this team. They're very, very good. It's an impressive roster, really players up and down the roster, offense, defense, special teams. Very well coached. Know a lot of their coaches. I know what they're about. So they play good football. So, like most weeks, to go on the road and try and find a win versus a really good football team, you got to make sure that you do all those things that we talk about in going on the road, taking care of the football, playing sound, playing complementary, all those things. So really today is about getting to know Buffalo and then getting out in the field and getting some work done. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Kevin, the snowstorm that's getting ready to hit Buffalo, could that impact like when you guys go down there, and then are there other contingencies you're looking at that could impact the way you prepare for the game?
I'm sure it could. I'm sure some people are having some conversations about that. I'm not in that circle right now. They'll fill me in, need to know. But for us, we just have to focus on our preparation. And if something changes, we'll tell the players, we'll tell you guys.
Do you know if there's a chance they would move the game to a neutral location?
I have no idea. Now, I've been part of neutral location games. You guys can do your homework on that one.
You said that you can't control the weather, so you just have to deal with it. Do you think you dealt with it well in South Florida?
Well, I still feel that way this week. Speaking of the weather, we'll deal with it. Yeah, I mean, does that weather affect you? Yes. Is it an excuse? No. I mean, every team that goes down there has to deal with that. There are certain things that you can do, Tony, from hydration and messaging and things that we did to try to address those things. You do that each week, but it's not an excuse.
Early in the game, as early as the second quarter, that guys were winded and lethargic. Did you see it that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because I don't want to dispute that it was hot, but every team that goes down there and plays Miami, you're in the sun for the first half. That's how their stadium is designed. So you're going to be hot, and that's why we tried to rotate as many guys as we did. But again, it's part of the elements of football. It's an outdoor game. It's what we have to deal with.
Are you going to give Deshaun first team reps this week?
Yeah. Obviously, as you guys know, Deshaun can practice today. He was able to be part of the walkthrough for the first time this morning. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of what reps he's getting, what Jacoby's getting, what Josh Dobbs is getting. We really don't do that for any of the guys. But it's going to be good to have him out there at practice with his teammates.
Is it going to escalate as you get closer to him playing like more and more?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into specifics. But, again, this is the next step for him, and it's good to have him back out in the field.
Kevin, since we're the ones we ask the players questions, and actually Deshaun is a subject. So how do you keep that from being a distraction as you prepare for the Bills?
We talked about it this morning, Jeff. He's eligible to practice with the team, but what's important is that we do everything we can to find a way to get a win versus Buffalo, and that's where the players' focus is.
Off-season, because Jacoby and Deshaun were splitting reps in the preseason and all that. Did you have a plan for what the rep split would be like at this point in time, or did you just, as the season went on, say, okay, we're going to split it up this way?
I think, as you remember, Kimberly, that things were changing in the moment there with some of those details of suspension, those type of things. And then once you know the rules of the return to play, that's when we really accelerated the conversations on what it should look like when he's eligible to practice. So that's where we are now.
What's going to be the challenge in balancing, getting Jacoby ready to play, because you got 2 huge games coming up, and then also getting Deshaun ready to play, especially in light of the fact he hasn't played in 2 seasons now?
Yeah, I think that was a big part of our off-season, and in the spring and in the summer getting Deshaun reps. I think you bank those reps. I think he has a lot of reps that he can rely on and can watch the tape of him running plays that he'll be asked to run when it's time for him to play. But the most important thing right now is getting ready for Buffalo and getting Jacoby ready to play.
Unusual transition coming up at quarterback. How do you prevent it from being awkward?
Yeah, I think you guys know the two parties at hand here. These are professionals. These are good people. They're friends. And I think that's probably the most important thing.
How do you find comfort and knowledge in a situation like this? And I know you don't want to get into details of the reps and whatnot, but how do you just find what you need to feel comfortable that this plan is right and it's going to work out how you want to make both sides, both Jacoby and Watson, comfortable?
Yeah, I think ultimately I don't know that there's a handbook. So for us, we're just, with the information available to us, try to make good decisions for the team. Again, Deshaun can come back to practice. That's the next step. So we'll get him out there in practice. But Jacoby's starting. He's going to put everything he has into this game like he does each week. His preparation is not changing. My preparation with him is not changing. So it's just a matter of finding the right amount, and that's something that we just have to work through.
Two different game plans together this week, one for a snow bowl and one for semi-normal conditions.
I wouldn't say two separate game plans, but you're always, when weather is going to be a factor, as it might be, you're always thinking about having plays that you might turn to should it be a major factor. Jacoby played in a whiteout in this stadium in 2017, so he's used to it. Alex Van Pelt's on staff. He played there for many years, so the guys are prepared for if that's what it ends up being, but can't spend too much time worrying about that. Just on the front end, just put together a plan and ready to pivot in the moment if need be.
Kevin, what do you remember about that week when the game against the Giants got moved to Detroit?
Good job, Zach. Yeah, that was when the dome collapsed, which was crazy. And I think for coaches and players, in any of those moments, you just deal with what's in front of you. Coaches and players, all we have to do is say, hey, go to this bus, get on this plane, go to this meeting. We don't have to do all the work that goes into it from the logistics standpoint. So we're creatures of habit. We're creatures of listening to whoever tells us to go in whichever direction they want us to go in. And, you want to play the game on this day, that day, that's fine. Even going back when I was with the Vikings in, I'm going to guess now, 2000, call it 11, we had a game versus the Eagles that was postponed until Tuesday night. It was supposed to be, I think, a Sunday night game. So, like you dream about playing Tuesday night football. But I think for players and particularly the players, they're ready to adapt. That's what they do. And whatever comes our way, we'll be ready. But I also know this, what's most important is practice in 7 minutes.
Ball drills are commonplace for getting ready to play in the rain. And just, is there anything you do to kind of prep for, having to carry a ball in snow?
Yeah, I think those are kind of things you definitely work on. With the quarterbacks, some quarterbacks don't love the wet ball drill because it's a heavier ball that puts some stress on your shoulders. Jacoby, I think he'll be just fine. And the rest of the guys, if you get into weather games, it just becomes it's one more emphasis on your technique is really what it is.
Kevin, I know you don't rule anybody in or out on a Wednesday, but getting JOK back today in practice, and David obviously out still, but what do you need to see out of those two guys in particular to feel good about them for Sunday?
Yeah, I think with those guys in particular, but with anybody, they just got to keep progressing. I think both those guys are progressing. I'm hopeful on both of them. JOK is going to practice today. David's not, like you mentioned, but I think if they keep responding to treatment, keep responding to the rest, I'm hopeful on them.
Teller is available to practice?
Yes.
Have you done any homework on the 2007 game in the Browns-Bills, the snow game here?
I have not. Fill me in.
Trent Edwards threw the
8-0.
ball 33 times.
That's all you have to know. 8 times.
How many times?
33 times he threw it.
Yeah, it's interesting because you go into each one of these games and weather's a factor. Our stadium's on the lake. Buffalo's is, it's lake effect snow we're talking about. So it's one more element that you have to deal with. I know this. They played in a very windy game versus New England, and they threw it 30-plus times. So it's hard to, even with the conditions, say that the game's going to go one specific way.
In that game, Philadelphia kicked 2 field goals in the snow, and Cade, I don't know if he has a lot of experience in that. Is that something that you take into account? And, you can't really practice that.
Yeah, it's hard to practice. We got the cryo chamber. I think those are day-of-the-game things that you got to get really good reps in pregame warm-up.
Growing up in the village, did you ever play in snow game, where the snow was real heavy and everything?
Played in some cold games in college. Ithaca, New York is not real warm late in the year. I think we mentioned the other day I was part of the -6 playoff game versus the Seahawks. That was cold. So it's not going to be cold. But I think, again, it's another element that you deal, it's another variable, better word, that you just deal with. And we'll see if this is, we'll see if this is something that requires a lot of attention. It may also require no attention. The weatherman's sometimes wrong.
Kevin, looking back to Sunday, you guys weren't able to get as much pressure on Tua as I know you had hoped. It felt like their tackles did a nice job of running your ends a little deeper. What can you do to fix that inside to get either your defensive tackles to win their matchup or bring some pressure from there?
Yeah, I think it's probably multifaceted to answer that, Tom, because you also you need to get into third and longer situations to really pin your ears back and rush. And, we didn't do that enough in terms of 1st and 10 defense is as important to set yourself up to get in those positions. But then specifically to the offensive line, teams are going to give our ends attention. There are things that we've done and things that we'll always continue to do to try to take that attention off of them. But teams are, as we all know, are determined to get the ball out quickly versus us, and that informs us in how we rush. It informs us in how we cover, but we just ultimately didn't have enough true rush opportunities, I'd tell you, in that game.
What is
Last one?
Josh Allen? What's the unique challenge that he presents that you really have to prepare your defense for with him?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great player. He's a huge percentage of their offense, whether it's the pass game, the design quarterback runs, or the off-schedule plays, which he's unbelievable at. And those are really, really difficult to defend. He has really good players on the outside. He's got a good offensive line to protect him. But when he wants to buy time, and he's a huge threat to run as a big body that can he's hard to get on the ground. And then he's a huge threat to keep the play alive and survey the field for what feels like forever. And then find Stefan Diggs. They have a great rapport. I know Stefan well. He's one of the most competitive players I've ever been around. He's super talented, can track the deep ball, strong hands. So you just have really impressive weapons on his perimeter that these plays go on for, a while. So you have to be ready for that. That's really hard to mimic in a practice setting. But in game, you talk about playing through the echo of the whistle. Those plays they take some time. You really, until he's down on the ground or until it's an incomplete pass or until you've heard that whistle, the play's never over with him.